This is CBN NewsWatch.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm George Thomas. The largest high school district in the state of Illinois has decided to allow transgender students unrestricted access to student locker rooms. The school board voted 5-2 on the new policy just days ago, despite protests by parents and students. Reporter Heather Sells has been following this and joins us now. Heather, what does this all mean?
George, the district has been dealing with this issue since 2015 when a transgender student complained about school policies. But this latest decision means that transgender students no longer have to use privacy stalls in school locker rooms. The transgender student who filed a discrimination lawsuit against the district told the Daily Herald, a local newspaper, that she is ecstatic about the vote, while a student who's a swimmer says that she's worried.
It's definitely a first step forward in many more steps. It's a great policy. Unfortunately, it's not everything we want, such as talking about even the small things like changing the name on your student ID.
I feel uncomfortable that my privacy is being invaded. As I am a swimmer, I do change multiple times naked in front of the other students in the locker room. And I understand that the board has an obligation to all students, but I was hoping that they would go about this in a different way that would also accommodate students such as myself.
So the district is emphasizing that students can't independently decide to use the opposite sex's locker room, that they have to be aligned with the gender on their school record. But a group of parents that support privacy say that this new policy opens the door for harassment and humiliation, and that there's not enough privacy stalls to protect the girls who need it.
Heather, you have also been reporting on parents who they are concerned about what happens when their children identify as transgender. What have you learned specifically about this issue? Yeah,
so there is growing concern about these children who have some gender confusion, that school and medical professionals are just very quick to diagnose them with gender dysphoria and begin a path towards what is known as transitioning. This often includes costly and even irreversible medical treatment.
She was the typical girl, playing with baby dolls and Barbie dolls.
He was a typical rough and tough little boy. He liked to wrestle.
Then all of a sudden, things changed.
She came into the kitchen one night when I was cooking dinner and just told me, "Mom, I'm transgender. I'm a boy."
He said, I went to this clinic and I have gender dysphoria and I was born in the wrong body and I should have been a girl.
She now has a very deep voice, facial hair, a receding hairline.
Christy's daughter was in high school and Crystal's son was in college when they told their parents that they were born in the wrong body and wanted to change. Both moms were blindsided.
And they're not alone. Researchers say that the numbers of children and young adults confused about their gender are skyrocketing, along with the clinics that treat them, doling out hormones, puberty blockers, and even surgeries.
And it's just amazing how quickly this phenomenon has kind of arisen, and then how extensive it is. It went from nothing to 45, and they're at the most elite institutions in American public life.
Many parents of these kids are pointing to a Brown University researcher who has discovered cluster outbreaks among young females. These girls who say they're boys follow a pattern before they come out. Friendships with other girls who identify as trans, increased social media use, often a history of mental health issues, and stories that sound the same.
Everything that she said to me sounded scripted. So it seemed like she was learning it on the internet and possibly from her group of friends.
Christy leads a support group for parents of rapid-onset gender dysphoria kids. It's one of a growing number, all with parents who believe medical and educational professionals are too quick to affirm and push medical treatment for any gender-confused child. These parents, however, are in hiding for the most part. They meet quietly and speak anonymously when publicly voicing concerns. Carrie, a New England doctor and lifelong liberal, is worried about losing her job for speaking out. She only agreed to go on camera if we protected her identity. Carrie initially supported her 11-year-old daughter's desire to become a boy, buying a binder to flatten her chest and preparing to pay $1,000 a month for hormone treatments.
I was all in because I looked around and there was nothing to suggest that there was any problem with this. All the progressives are on board. Everybody's doing it. It's fine and it's good.
Then Carrie became suspicious because 3 other girls in her daughter's class had also identified as boys and were starting hormones. When her daughter asked for puberty blockers, Carrie's research led to alarm after learning of side effects like sterility and a host of other issues.
There's a lot of evidence that Lupron decreases your cognitive ability. It decreases your memory. It definitely decreases your bone density. And it stops the hormone cascade that puberty is designed to flood your body with these sex hormones that makes all of you mature.
Johns Hopkins psychiatrist Paul McHugh believes these young patients need psychiatric care, not hormones and puberty blockers, telling CBN News there's no solid research backing pediatric transgender medicine.
I'm of a great fear that we're in the midst of a political rather than a medical enterprise here.
It's entirely experimental. They don't have a single long-term study on the long-term consequences of permanently blocking puberty in a human being's body.
While in many ways the movement appears unstoppable, the growing number of parents quietly rising up could make a difference.
This is happening to the bodies of young people. And it's the medical intervention into the bodies of young people. And I think that makes a lot of parents sit up, whether they're on the left or the right, whether they're religious or secular.
McHugh believes once many of these patients realize what's happened to them, a new generation of medically scarred and sterile transgenders will call for justice.
Eventually the truth will out and we'll know, and I think we'll know tragically, that many of these children have been cruelly treated.
For now, Carrie has stopped plans for her daughter's medical treatment and ultimately hopes to speak out publicly.
I do not understand my profession right now. I am appalled. I think we're going to look back on this like we look back on lobotomies.
Both Crystal and Christy plan to keep making their case, although their children are legally adults and continue to use hormones.
He knows that he can call me if he ever needs anything, or if he wants to come home, the door is always open.
I cannot give up hope that she's going to realize that this is a mistake and she will stop the transition and want to come home and be with her family again.
Another powerful story here. Tell us about the emergence of these parent groups around the country.
Yeah, and I want to say I'm so grateful to these parents who are speaking out. They're risking a lot, and I'll explain that in a minute. But there is parents of ROGD kids, rapid onset gender dysphoria kids. They have just emerged in the last couple of years as this trend has come up. There's about 50 support groups in North America, 600 or so parents who've contacted the group. They come from all ideological, faith, you name it, backgrounds, and they're united around a concern about what's called an affirmative approach. And basically, it's these medical professionals and school professionals who are just quick to say to any gender-confused child, look, here's the way to go, and you need to transition, and here's how we'll do it.
You had 2 parents who were willing to go public. You showed their faces, but there are many parents who want to protect their identity. Why?
There is so much social pressure, and there is a lot of even employment pressure. The New England doctor who I talked to is concerned about losing her job. There is incredible political pressure around this issue, and even social pressure, even church pressure. Some churches are just accepting of this, and so these parents are finding themselves without a voice. I do want to mention that there is a political group called the Kelsey Coalition, so some parents are not just going for the emotional support, they're also turning to the Kelsey Coalition to try and rise up politically against what's going on.
You spoke with Dr. McHugh in your story, who's been obviously voicing concerns about the medical treatment for children for some time. How does he make sense of this medical trend that's happening and that you've been reporting on?
Yeah, he has been working with patients who identify as transgender for years, both children and adults. And he says, you know, the research shows a lot of times children who are gender confused, it resolves by adulthood. So he thinks psychiatric care is the way to go, not medical treatment. And he says there is no good evidence that people are better off when they have this medical treatment. And he's really calling for a full evaluation of these children when they come in.
Yeah, fantastic. Excellent reporting. Appreciate your analysis and the story. It's an important story. Heather Sells, thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay, we move to Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. The final two witnesses are taking the stand today in the public hearings in the Democrats' push to impeach President Trump. David Holmes, a political counselor at the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv, Ukraine, says he was at lunch with Ambassador Gordon Sondland when he overheard the phone call in which they discussed investigations requested of Ukraine. Holmes testified that Sondland told Trump that Ukraine's president would do, quote, anything you ask him to, and expressed concerns about the role of Rudy Giuliani in Ukraine policy. Take a listen.
As the impeachment inquiry has progressed, I have followed press reports and reviewed the statements of Ambassadors Taylor and Yovanovitch. Based on my experiences in Ukraine, my recollection is generally consistent with their testimony. And I believe that the relevant facts were therefore being laid out for the American people. However, in the last couple of weeks, I read press reports expressing for the first time that certain senior officials may have been acting without the president's knowledge or freelancing in their dealings with Ukraine.
A campaign by Giuliani involved public statements attacking the ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, as well as a push for Ukraine to investigate interference in the 2016 presidential election and the Bidens. Fiona Hill, the National Security Council secretary, also testifies today. We will have more on this story and others this evening on Faith Nation. As always, you can watch it right here on the CBN News Channel. Israel's Attorney General Avichai Mandelblit announced today he will recommend indictments in 3 separate cases against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The indictments include fraud and breach of trust. As Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, the announcement puts the political future of Israel's longest-serving prime minister in doubt and Israel's political landscape in more turmoil.
Israelis have waited for months for this announcement and confirmed what many had suspected, that Netanyahu would be indicted. Now he'll have his day in court and defend himself. And Netanyahu has said for months that the charges are baseless. Despite the indictments, Netanyahu remains as prime minister until the results of his trial, which that could take months. If he was convicted, he'd have to step down. And it comes at a critical time politically here in Israel. Both Benny Gantz, the leader of the Blue and White Party, and Netanyahu have been unable to form a government. And now, for the first time in Israel's history, the members of the Knesset will have 21 days to form a government. If they can't, Israelis will go to the polls in several months. Whatever happens, Israel is facing one of its most uncertain times politically in its history. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Thank you, Chris. Coming up, protests in Hong Kong continue. We will bring you the very latest from the region.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary. Or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN NewsWatch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Yes, right on time.
From
Superbook.
Pepper's Pizza Palace is donating pizza for everyone today.
Wait. I have big plans today.
Trust in God even when times are tough. He has a plan for your life.
Hey, we're gonna be late for the grand opening.
My parents want me to help with this outreach thing, feeding the community. What am I supposed to do here? Superbook!
Join the Superbook Club and get Superbook The Birth of Moses, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25.
Pharaoh ordered all newborn Hebrew boys thrown into the Nile River, and I have a 3-month-old brother.
The Birth of Moses. Yours for a gift of only $25.
What will you do the next time the soldiers come? I do not know, but I trust God has a plan for all of us.
Superbook Club members free streaming for seasons 1, 2, and 3 is now available.
Welcome back to the CBN News Channel. As Hong Kong pro-democracy protesters finally leave a university campus they have held for days, China is demanding that President Trump veto new legislation aimed at supporting human rights in Hong Kong. Dale Hurd has a story.
At least 23 people left Hong Kong's Polytechnic University today after the worst anti-government violence since Hong Kong's pro-democracy protest began. It's unclear how many protesters are still holding out. Some 1,000 protesters have either surrendered to or, if underage, been registered by police as they tried to flee. One holdout said, "I think if you really go out and surrender, it's like you're showing you agree with the government and police, what they're doing, like you've given up the fight. Even if you get arrested or die, you know that you've tried your best and you've got no regrets." Meanwhile, on Capitol Hill, both the House and Senate have passed bills supporting human rights in Hong Kong and mandating sanctions on Chinese and Hong Kong officials who carry out human rights abuses.
And this bill sends a clear message to China that there will be consequences for their ruthless and brutal actions in Hong Kong.
The protests have continued because the people of Hong Kong see what's coming. They see the steady effort to erode the autonomy and their freedoms.
To President Xi, this resolution is what America thinks of you and your policies towards the people in Hong Kong.
The bills now go to the White House for President Trump's signature, and even with the prospect that the bills will seriously complicate U.S.-China trade negotiations, the White House has signaled that the president will sign the measure. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Still ahead, you may have heard the phrase, the deep state, but what does that mean, and is it real? We will hear what a former CIA analyst says when we come back.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Watch Christian World News, Saturday at 5 p.m. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to CBN.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back to the CBN News Channel. If you follow politics here in the United States, you have heard people talking about the deep state. But is it a fantasy or the reality in our nation's capital? Appearing on this week's episode of The Global Lane, former CIA analyst Michael Schur says an American insurrection is now underway.
It may be a coup, but it seems to me it's more the case that it's an insurrection. The federal government, at least the executive branch, is being denied the ability to execute its responsibilities, whether it's here in Washington or in places like Seattle and Portland, Los Angeles, and San Francisco, where under the Supremacy Clause, Washington is very clearly responsible for immigration. There is much more disruption, much more insurrection in this country than Lincoln faced until the Confederates fired at Fort Sumter. And so it's really a staggering position to be again in this position 100 or almost 160 years later.
Yes, I mean, to have the Attorney General of the United States make these type of comments, he must be gravely concerned. Now, he says there's a resistance that has a strategy and is using every tool available to sabotage the executive branch. I'm assuming this includes impeachment. So what do you think of the hearings in the House?
What we've heard so far in these sessions has been, I'm very offended because the president didn't listen to my advice. And certainly in ignorance, both in the Congress and in the testimony. When the Constitution says bribery, the founders were talking about the president accepting bribes.
Do you think there was any bribery of Ukraine on the part of this president? How about Joe and Hunter Biden and Burisma Holdings?
Well, you know, so that's the point, I think. If the president of the United States could grab something out of the Ukraine in return for our money that was really worth something to the United States, I think the American people as a whole would be very happy with that. And if it happened to involve Biden and his son, and they were actually criminally involved, the president would be praised, I would think, for preventing someone like him from having a chance to get into the White House. When I say him, I mean Joe Biden. So this has been the way it's been since the American presidency was formed. And what they're doing is, as Mr. Barr said, trying to tear down the institutions of this country. They're not the loyal opposition. They are an infestation of globalists who want to deny nationality to the United States and blend us in with the rest of the world.
The IG's FISA report may be released publicly any day now. So, Michael, what do you expect it'll reveal?
Well, if America is to be, again, a land of rule of law and equality before the law, there'll be suggested indictments for John Brennan, Susan Rice, Clapper, all those FBI characters, Comey and McCabe and Strzok and the rest of them. And also, I would think, clearly Obama is involved in this up to his neck, because clearly this was run from the Oval Office by Barack Obama in an attempt to defeat candidate Trump and an ongoing threat through insurrection or coup. You know, it's up to you to choose the word, since the president was inaugurated.
Now, this all sounds like conspiracy.
Clearly the planning on how to take care of it, the insurance policy, all of that stuff, that's clearly a conspiracy. Sometimes there are conspiracies, sir.
Well, finally, I know you worked at the CIA, so how dangerous is it for the country to have intelligence officials and agents involved in politics, taking sides? And I thought we were all on America's side, or we should be anyway.
You know, sir, I worked there almost 25 years, and I have to say I must have been as naive as the deuce, because I never could believe this, except this could have happened. But clearly, the CIA is in this up to its neck. And John Brennan, who I knew most of my career, I tried to get to talk to the Senate committee before they were going to give him that position. And they didn't want to talk. And so I've written a couple pieces on the blog. John Brennan has only been in this business for himself since he was a young man and came in as a communist sympathizer. I suspect that the agency at this point is facing a very difficult problem, because I would want to, if I was the chief of the CIA at this moment, to get rid of everybody that was employed under the auspices of the two Obama administrations. Because clearly the people who were sent there not to defend the United States, but to tear it down from inside. Mr. President, you have to clean this house. The bureaucracy runs this country, and it's running it according to the dictates of George Soros and other people who are in league with that kind of people. So, that kind of person. So I think the CIA needs to be drastically reformed, primarily in the elimination of anyone who came to work there under the Obama administrations.
Well, 3 years in, I guess it's never too late. Okay, Dr. Michael Schur, thank you for sharing your insights.
You're very kind. Thank you.
And you can hear more on Global Lane tonight at 9:30 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link, Tuesday nights at 6:30.
If you're tired and exhausted all day, you can't think clearly, and you really just need a cup or even a pot of coffee to get through your day, then join me, Dr. Josh Axe, for this new series where I'm going to teach you how to transform your diet and use essential oils and supplements to get a better night's sleep.
Get Protect Your Sleep and live your best life with innovative information from 5 leading sleep experts.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
Discover a sleep-enhancing bedtime routine, how to put insomnia to rest, learn how to relieve pain that disturbs sleep, and much more in Protect Your Sleep.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
Wake up to your best life. Call 1-800-700-7000 to get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Don't miss out on this brand new series.
Pope Francis arrived in Bangkok, Thailand today for the first stop of his week-long tour of Asia. An estimated crowd of 60,000 Catholics were cheering and waving Vatican flags as he entered the National Sports Stadium for a Mass. It is the country's first papal visit since 1984. The Pope is set to meet tomorrow with local Thai clergy, Asian bishops, and separately hold a meeting with leaders of different Christian denominations. Well, we will have to leave it right there. Thank you so much for joining us for this edition of CBN News Watch. From all of us here, have a great rest of your day. God bless.